liturgical season of Lent has begun. In Jerusalem, Ash Wednesday Mass, presided by Father Fergus Clark and concelebrated by the Franciscan friars, was celebrated at the Holy Sepulchre. A trip to the wilderness of Judea in line with the first Sunday of Lent, getting to know the place where Jesus overcame the temptations, relying on God. Over 100 pilgrims from the American Dynamic Catholic Institute came on pilgrimage to the Holy Land to return to the roots of their faith. The nuns of Our Lady of the Pillar are the only ones to produce the altar bread hosts to be used in the Holy Mass in Jerusalem. 9 women from different countries have carried out this mission for the last 70 years. A man does not walk with his feet, but with his heart and his will, the motto of the Palestinian photographer who does not allow paralysis caused by a bullet to steal the hope and passion for his profession. The ancient art of Armenian ceramics handed down from father to son and present in Jerusalem for centuries. In Jerusalem, on this Ash Wednesday, Father Fergus Clark presided over the Eucharistic celebration in the Basilica of the Holy Sepulchre. The Mass, concelebrated by the Franciscans, custodians of the shrines of the land of Jesus, was held in the place where, according to tradition, Christ was buried and rose again. The Mass was an expression of the faith of the people who, by receiving the imposition of ashes, testified to their longing to the conversion and recalled that we came from dust, and to dust we will return. During the homily, Father Fergus compares Christians who are preparing for Easter to an athlete training to participate in the Olympic Games.
The aspect which I wanted to emphasize was the aspect of adoring God using our bodies. That is, by withdrawing from certain foods or from food for a certain period during Lent, as we feel it, we are able to say to God, despite the fact that food is essential for our very lives, you, God, are more important than our own very lives itself.
Celebrating Lent in the Holy Land, where we can see and even touch the places where Jesus lived his passion, death, and resurrection, has a special significance.
Specialmente il tempo di Quaresima per tutti I frati, tutti I preti, tutti I religiosi che arriveranno.
All the friars, the priests, and the religious believe that coming here during Lent is very special because everyone is waiting for this day of the resurrection of Christ after 40 days, after this very special time of intensive prayer. Every Saturday evening we gather here with all the priests, students, and the religious for a night vigil.
Molto anche intensiva. Ogni sabato sera ci troviamo con tutti I preti, studenti e religiosi per la veglia di notte.
Certainly here in the Holy Land we're very privileged to walk in the footsteps of Jesus, and so we do emphasize a lot his life, his death and his resurrection for us. We try to meditate upon these, and we have special ceremonies throughout Lent that mark these events and that help us get in touch with the reality that God became a man for us in this land, that he suffered and died for us in this land so that we might be free from sin and death.
O deserto tem como característica.
The main feature of the desert is first of all loneliness, dryness. Just look around and you will realize that we cannot find anything that is essential to our lives. There is no food, no water.
Não tem os alimentos, não tem água.
"2,000 years ago in this desert, the desert of Judea, Jesus spent 40 days and 40 nights. Here he fasted and was tempted by the devil."
depois de ter sido enviado no dia do seu batismo.
After receiving the baptism, Jesus came here to develop his project of life, to be the one who opens the way into the desert for the people for whom he was sent. How? Through a purification and at the same time a renewal of the covenant that God made at Sinai and wants to make with each of us today.
Que Deus fez no Sinai e quer fazer hoje com cada de nós.
The desert experience is directly associated with Lent and with our lives.
Se ele, passando estes três tentações,
If Jesus is able to overcome 3 temptations and a period of deprivation for 40 days and 40 nights in the desert, he is telling us that, assuming our nature, if we surrender to God, we too will be able to overcome the same temptations. We will also be able to face this desert period and discover the opportunity of something good arising from it.
aquela possibilidade de nascer qualquer coisa de bom dentro de cada de nós.
Pilgrimage to the Holy Land can be an experience of beauty and of absolutely unexpected intensity. The first-hand connection with the holy places combined with the reading of the Gospel enliven and renew the images that have always accompanied our journey of faith. This is what the pilgrims from the Dynamic Catholic Institute are experiencing these days in the land of the fifth Gospel, from Nazareth to Jerusalem, walking on the land blessed by the presence of Jesus.
It's good that we take some time out once in a while just to look at what's going on in our lives, but to be a pilgrim rather than a tourist is so important for our souls. Just to know that our lives are in the hands of God and we don't design everything. Like Mary found out right here at this place, it's not my will but thine be done.
Over 100 pilgrims arrived from the United States to set off for the journey on the path to return to the roots of their faith.
We just celebrated Resurrection, Easter. A lot of these pilgrims have talked to me about how they have been resurrected this year. Or like one gentleman said that he's been away from the church for a number of years and he just came back a few days ago on this pilgrimage and he's back for good. I mean, that's resurrection.
A way to fully live the words of the Custos of the Holy Land, Father Francesco Patton. Pilgrimages are mainly an experience of faith because through a pilgrimage we are able to come into contact with our own history and with the places that witness the history of salvation.
I'm very humbled to be here. It is extremely emotional to be able to walk the ground, to be able to touch the place where Jesus was crucified and was buried.
The Eucharist, or Holy Communion, is one of the 7 sacraments of the Catholic Church. Jesus' words echo in the Eucharist. I am the living bread that came down from heaven. If anyone eats of this bread, they will live forever. In the old city of Jerusalem, the Sisters of Our Lady of the Pillar have been carrying out the mission of producing altar bread hosts for over 70 years, intended to be used during the Eucharistic celebrations.
In order to make the altar bread, first of all, we have to select an appropriate flour. Because if it is not okay, the hosts do not come out nicely. They prepare the flour, removing everything that may appear to be dirt or anything, to be really white and smooth and the right quantity for the amount of hosts that they want to make at a time, but also adapting themselves to the conditions of this particular machine.
The nuns produce the dough early in the morning by mixing the flour prepared the night before with the right doses of water. The dough passes through several machines which guarantee the proper consistency, cooking and drying through steam and through the press. In a game of precise timing and temperature, the mixture is ready to be cut in 2 different dimensions.
First of all, they cut the bigger horse. With the rest that remains, they cut the smaller ones, and then all the remainders go into a plastic bag that normally the people, the neighbors, come and ask us to eat because people like eating them a lot.
The production of wafers allows the nuns to not only support themselves, but also to manage the school of Our Lady of the Pillar, located inside the convent. The Spanish nuns, as they are called locally, are the only ones to offer this service throughout the city, a service that, thanks to these 9 women, reaches thousands of people around the world.
أسامة السلوادي مصور فلسطيني.
I am Silwadi Osama, a Palestinian photographer. I started taking pictures 25 years ago. Photography was my hobby since I was a child, but I started to take it more seriously as a teenager in high school or earlier. The passion and love for the beauty and especially love for nature led me to become a photographer.
شغفي بحب الجمال والطبيعة بالذات.
Osama Silwadi, an internationally renowned photojournalist, was accustomed to face any kind of challenge with a camera wrapped around his neck, which he carried with him wherever he went. Then, a stray bullet forced him in a wheelchair about 10 years ago.
كان في مسيرة بالشارع.
There was a demonstration in the street and there were gunshots in the air. Driven by curiosity about what goes on, as any photojournalist, I looked out the office window and was hit by a bullet. I had not realized that they had shot me, but I suddenly fell to the ground and began to lose consciousness. Then I clung to the window and began to call people on the streets, shouting, "I have been shot! I have been shot!" A man does not walk with his feet, but with his heart and will. This is the motto adopted by Silwadi and held tight during his long journey of medical care, which also included delicate surgeries, therapies, and a long coma. After 40 days, he woke up miraculously in the opinion of the doctors. In this new situation, Osama found a new determination to tackle the challenges, a willingness, and a new hope towards life, which allowed him to continue working in the world of photography.
هاي الغيبوبة كانت
The coma was a very difficult stage of my life. I was closer to death. Maybe I was already dead and then I came back. I do not know. But certainly I was closer to death than to life. The situation was very serious. The wound caused a blood contamination and I caught pneumonia. I was really dying. But miraculously I recovered and I suddenly woke up.
رجعت صحيت هيك مرة واحدة بدون أي مقدمات.
The Queens of Silk, The Revelation of the Stones, The Land of Flowers are just some of the books published by Osama Silwadi, who, once regained consciousness, decided to start a new project to document the Palestinian heritage and the natural wonders through photography. His faith in the cause of his people and the beauty of nature helped him to rise from his wounds and not to lose hope.
هي الحقيقة فيش إشي اسمه إعاقة، في مجتمع معيق.
Actually, there is no thing called disability. There is a self-defeating society. That is, if a man is able to think, disability remains apparent. We walk and work with the heart and mind. If the heart is healthy and the mind is intact, there is no disability.
العقل سليم، لا يوجد شيء اسمه إعاقة.
In the alleys of the Armenian neighborhood of the old city of Jerusalem lives an Armenian family that has made ceramic and porcelain craftsmanship its profession and livelihood. Family members work together so as to avoid losing this ancient tradition, brought to the city long ago and now one of its hallmarks. The family also comes together to highlight and show its historical, cultural and civil characteristics.
الخزف الأرمني تبعنا اللي بنشوفه هلا بالقدس أصله من
The origin of Armenian porcelain in Jerusalem dates back to the 16th century, to the territories inhabited by the Armenians in Turkey, such as Kotahia. At that time, Turkish Sultan Suleiman decided to restore the Dome of the Rock, the famous mosque in Jerusalem, going from wood to ceramics. And so he summoned Armenian craftsmen from Kotahia to paint the tiles. 2 or 3 years after arriving with their families, they could not return home any longer because of massacres in Turkey.
ولما اجوا هون بعد سنتين ثلاثة بديوا المذابح في تركيا فالعيلة ما قدرت تعود ترجع لبيتها.
أنا بدأت مع زوجي من 30 سنة.
I started this business with my husband 30 years ago. We have so many Armenian symbols that we use in our art. I'm drawing birds which in our art form symbolize long life. We also depict many images from the Gospel, such as symbols of freedom and abundance or prayers.
We meet another Armenian family, the Caucasians. Hajop inherited the profession from his grandfather, and now he is the owner of the store in the heart of the old city of Jerusalem. He explains how he makes porcelain according to the ancient Armenian method.
هذه الصنعة تعلمتها من أبوي اللي هو تعلمها من أبوه. يعني أنا تورثتها.
I learned this trade from my father, just as he learnt it from his. This means that I represent the third generation that has continued this art form in Jerusalem. You see, at this point you introduce the colors, then you work on the outer part of the piece, outlining the design, and then M. Andre decorates the outside. After that, M. Isa fills the drawing with colors. This dish is ready. First, it is soaked in a special glaze, then it is dried, placed in the oven, and heated to about 1000 degrees. Then it is ready for use.
ونحطه بالفرن نشويه ل 1000 درجة مئوية. بعد الفرن جاهز للاستعمال.
The mission of the Christian Media Center is to bring the message of the Holy Land, the land of the fifth gospel, to the world. Broadcasts, reports, news, documentaries, the latest happenings in the church and of the daily life of Christians in the Holy Land. You can help us in this mission, raising awareness and spreading the message of the Holy Land. Help us. Visit our website,